Opinion with your hosts, Vanetta and Pam. And here is Vanetta again. And I'm always just so happy to see Vanetta because she is continuing to recuperate from her surgery. And I'm so blessed and happy to have her here, even though it is still on Zoom. When she's better, we're going to be together in this studio or wherever we are. Because as you can see, yeah, I go around. I'm in one studio, then sometimes I come here, and then a lot of times I'm on back at home on the couch of wisdom. That's what I call that, the couch of wisdom, the brown couch of wisdom. Uh, but so Vanetta, what has been going on with you since surgery?
Well, just following up with my doctors, trying to get my blood work back on track. The recovery has been much slower than I had anticipated, but this 60-year-old woman maybe can't bounce back as like that 40-year-old woman did. So I'm on the road to recovery.
I'm very grateful, and the fact that you woke back up is a positive. So everything else, every day is a blessing. It really is a blessing.
It really is.
And I have been busy. I've been in a play. And when this show airs, the play will have ended. This will be the last day. And I was excited and very happy to be a part of the production.
The play is excellent. I mean, just moving. I enjoyed it so much. And it might be my favorite work of yours so far.
Well, I have been enjoying being a part of it. I think it's a great story. It's about it's called Red Summer. It's about Ida B. Wells. It's basically really kind of in two different time periods. And in the present day, it's about two people whose friend goes missing, and they later find out that she was a victim of police brutality and violence. And just showing how the different eras, even though it's 100 years apart, a lot of the same issues are going on.
It harkens back. We've gone so far and we've gone nowhere. I mean, that's what that play says to me.
Yeah,
And then I really dislike when people say, "Oh, everything isn't about race."
Yeah, a lot of stuff has to do with race, and people don't want to admit it or talk about it, but it is. But I just appreciate you. I appreciate your friendship, and that's what we're going to be talking about this week is friendship. And you'll hear the public opinion question, but the public opinion question does center around friendship. And so we do have a guest this week who is going to be joining us to talk about this topic. And let's get started and meet our guest. Our guest this week is Preston Allbritton. Preston is a travel and street photographer, affiliate marketer, and custom t-shirt creator, amongst other things, who now lives in Belize, Central America. Preston packed it all in and moved to Belize, Central America for freedom and greater opportunities. He spends his time expanding his photography business, capturing the incredible scenes and street life found in Central and South America, as well as other lands. He also dedicates time to developing additional streams of revenue through affiliate marketing. You can connect with him on Instagram at easymoney.pro for free info about the industry and how to establish your own streams of income. All right, so I cannot wait to meet Preston and find out a little bit more about him. So let's meet our guest. Well, welcome, Preston. Thank you so much for agreeing to be on the show this week. I'm so happy that you are willing to answer our public opinion question of the week. But before we get started, I do want to find out a little bit more about you, because Vanetta and I don't know you, but I find your story to be very fascinating. And so I did meet you as part of a podcasting group. So first of all, if you want to expand a little bit more, I've read your bio, but if you could expand and just tell our audience a little bit more about what you do, where you live, and what you're doing now with your life. And so first of all, you can go ahead and do that.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me on the podcast. I will share. This is my first time doing this, so I am rather excited and very humbled to have the invitation. I live in Sartenea, Belize. I grew up in Texas, lived in California, spent 10 years in the military, spent, I don't know, 20 plus years in Nashville, Tennessee. I've worked as a professional photographer since 2007. I've actually been involved in photography since 1985. Backgrounds includes 10 years in the military, several years working for different government entities. But revenue-wise, as far as income generation, it's been primarily from photography and affiliate marketing. I moved to Belize because I wanted freedom. Freedom from and to a lot of different things. And one of those is directly connected to my photography business, where I will be traveling, or I am traveling across Central and South America and other countries, capturing scenic images, as well as street life photography, which I market and sell as prints and in other revenue generating areas.
Okay, see, that sounds so fascinating to me, that when people actually get up and start doing things like that and traveling, and so that's just all very interesting to me. And so, at any rate, this wouldn't be public opinion if we didn't have a public opinion question of the week. So, our public opinion question of the week is: can friendships be stronger than some of the best marriages? So I'm going to give you a couple of minutes to answer that question, and then we're going to have a group discussion. Go ahead.
Sure. So my answer to that is an emphatic yes. My wife and I were together for 17 years. We were married for 14 and a half years. We unfortunately lost our third battle with lung cancer, so I lost her. However, during our time together, I learned very early on that my wife's best friend was not me. And I was 100% cool with that, because her best friend was her sister. My wife Joyce and her sister Debbie, I called her Madam Vice President. That's a long backstory. But those two were unlike any two people I have ever met in my life. And I say that very seriously. My wife could be literally pulling into the driveway of our home and the phone would ring. On the phone would be Debbie, and she'd go, "Where my sissy?" And I would go, "She in the driveway, she coming up." She says, "Okay, never mind, talk to you later." And she'd hang up. My wife would be sitting out in the driveway for an hour. That happened literally hundreds of times. So their friendship, in my opinion, trumped our marriage in that aspect of it. We had a great marriage. We were close. But one of the things that I realized, and it took me about 4 or 5 years to really figure it out, because the first 6 months to a year and a half, I was jealous of my sister-in-law. Had no issues with her. She didn't have any issues with me. We never had a cross word. But my wife was getting that happen. Yes, my wife came to me. If we had an issue, my wife came to me. There wasn't anything hidden, but there was this aura around the two of them. She could get on the phone Sunday morning, or say Saturday morning, and Saturday afternoon, she's still talking to her sister. And I finally developed, after about 5 years, I really developed a good relationship with my brother-in-law, who had been married to Madam Vice President for, at that point in time, 20 plus years. And he finally explained to me, he says, "Dude, let it go." Because those two are tied at the hip. They've been that way since they were kids. When I came to understand that, then I became literally a nurturer of the relationship, the friendship, because it was beyond, they're just family. Because I know a lot of family that don't get along. But I began to nurture the friendship that my wife had with her sister by asking, "So what's going on with Debbie? You know, what's happening here?" And then I used that friendship to my advantage. If my wife and I were having an issue, I'd send off a message to Debbie, says, "Hey, is everything okay? Is there something going on I don't need to know about?" And vice versa. She goes, "Brother-in-law, you need to work on this right here." So I had a bridge that benefited my marriage. And if there was something I wanted to do for my wife, I had a back door. So, Deb, I'm thinking about doing this. what do you think? And she's go, oh yeah. Or she go, nah, she ain't feeling that.
Yeah.
So it became a thing where I realized that I had strength in building my own relationship with my wife by nurturing and building and lifting up the friendship she had with her sister.
Yeah, and you know what? That's so interesting that you say that, and that because it could benefit you, rather than it being a negative thing. Because some men may say, "Oh, well, she's with her friends all the time. You don't spend time with me." But if you think about it, that is kind of a way of getting to know your wife even better through the friendships that she had, and vice versa. Because did you have any close friends yourself? That you have had for years, that you can say, okay, well, I know this person is going to be there for me all the time, no matter what.
Because of my life in the military, there's always been guys that I was connected to, for me, and I can't speak for all men. Most men's friendships are subject specific, meaning I'm really into something and this guy is really into something, and that gave us a bond. My close friends were typically either ministers or they were married. So there were guys that I could chop it up with about stuff. And if I had an issue, depending on what the issue was, dictated who the friend was that I went to. My wife knew all of those guys, knew all of them well. I made sure that they came to the house and they got fed. And I made sure I listened to what she said about them, because if my wife had an issue with someone, I had an issue. The same thing applied to the women that I know. I can't say that I had a woman that was a best friend of mine, but because of my work in church and the different things that I did, I particularly in Black churches, you're around a lot of women, and these are women in leadership positions. So my wife, of course, was eyeballing and vetting them. And if there was someone she heard me talk about a little bit more than another, then there were questions and conversations that had about them. That pulled Madam Vice President into the picture a time or two, because I was like, hey, Deb, this is what's going on with so-and-so, just want to let you know. I didn't plug her to say, hey, now you need to talk to my wife. No. I already knew my wife would talk to her about this person. I already knew that. But if I sensed something going on with my wife and I was getting pushback, again, I used my back door with her best friend, Debbie, to be able to say, hey, here's what's going on. And it bridged, again, I use that expression, it bridged a number of issues, not all, but a number of issues.
Well, I think the answer to the question is kind of twofold. Can it be better than the greatest of marriages? I think friendships can be. I really do. But I also think it's a different dynamic if I have a best friend and I have a husband, or I have a best friend, just solely. And I think you, a friend, helped my marriage, because there are things I vet with you before I vet them with my husband, and vice versa. I want to express to my husband that I've told you, or I'll tell you to tell your husband to tell him. And it's helped. And you are his go-to girl for me. He comes to you to say, do you think Vanetta would like this? Or is she going to hit the roof with this? So I think it all balances out, that each makes one better. And by the same token, I go to him to say, I'm going to do this for Pam. And he'll say, oh, Pam's not going to like that. And I'm like, you don't know what you're talking about. But we do say those things.
Right.
And so I just think that friendships you pick, and you can come in and out of friendships. So strong friendships are very valuable. You should not move in and out of marriages. You got to stay there once you make that commitment.
Right. And that's the thing that I think, and that's the reason I wanted to talk about this subject too, is because of the fact that I think sometimes a lot of friendships withstand some marriages, because you and I both know people
for sure
that we have been friends with who were friends of the couple, and then that couple may break up, And then sometimes you're left with figuring out, okay, well, do I stay friends with them? Can we still all be friends, even though that marriage might be over with?
It becomes tricky. It's a landmine. Remember, we had a friend that called us and said, well, we're divorcing, and I'd like to know if you want to maintain this friendship. And I thought that was so unusual. But I now, as I age and more seasoned, I understand where she was going.
Yeah.
That's an interesting statement.
Yeah. What do you think?
I had that happen to me. I had that happen to me. The couple that I don't want to put, and I knew that we were friends with both of them, and this is after Joyce had passed on. The guy called me, and he says, "I want to tell you before anybody else tells you that my wife and I are getting a divorce." Well, it floored me because they were the Rock of Gibraltar. As I told him, I says, "Dude, you are the poster child for marriage for me." So I'm shocked by this. But I was a smart enough man to say their marriage is their marriage. So the whys, how it comes, what for is not my business. Never asked, he never offered. At the same time, and I'll say it was 3 or 4 months later, his wife contacted me and we had a conversation. She, however, never said that he and I are getting a divorce. I'd already known, and I'm not going to presume that, he told her, but her conversation with me kind of presumed that I knew. So I never asked her, hey, I'm sorry, or I never said anything along that line. But my friend, the gentleman, was calling me to test the water to see how I would respond. So if I'd have said, man, I can't believe this, you leaving her, blah, 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 and I jumped up and down on him, then I would have lost both of them.
Oh.
I would, because I had a friendship separately with each one of them professionally. Again, they were both ministers as well, but they each did different things. He was my primary guy, so to speak, but I still had a connection and a relationship with both. So I had that conversation, and then afterwards, I'm like, I respect the fact that they did that because it helped to reduce the scuttlebutt. It helped to it at least took me out the picture of people murmuring, because if someone had come to me and says, man, did you know that so-and-so and so-and-so is getting divorced? They would have got an earful for me, saying, why are you getting in their business? Yeah, I know about it. Leave it alone.
Yeah, I think that's probably why it's important for people to be friends before they it really develop a friendship. Not so much a romantic thing, but I think it's important to have a friendship with your spouse because I think friendships are so strong. And if you don't have that connection where you can just kind of know that you can talk to this person, you can feel free to say or do whatever you want and just have that whole friendship without the romance attached to it, because sometimes things can happen what takes away the romantic part of a marriage, but you still have to have that foundation, that friendship. And I think that probably is a problem with some marriages.
From experience, again,
well, for sure, in a marriage, responsibility, financial responsibility.
Yeah, I think there's just a lot of things that can be said about having a foundation of friendship, and even in a marriage. And I think sometimes that's what's missing in marriages, and why maybe some of them don't last. And the friendships that you have developed along the way will withstand a lot of that, or will help to uphold the marriage.
But also in friendship, you don't have those obligations of financial responsibility, children. Friendships, you get together typically at happy times or even sad times. They're there to support you. But day to day, you don't have the minutia of what life requires from you. I mean, like if you have a friend and you don't want to see her on Thursday, you don't go over there to see her. But if you come home on Thursday, he's there.
Right. And sometimes that's what makes you keep on driving past the house
and ask him to leave because that's inappropriate.
Right. That's absolutely right. Because in a marriage, that's true. It's like day in, day out.
His house and have a drink.
That's true. That is true. And that might be
Right.
another
Every
reason
day
why
I
you
see
can
your
keep
face.
a friend.
Every day. And then, a friend, you're happy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
or you
Because
could
you
be
can
sad
choose
or
this
just
is your
work through
friend
it.
or not.
Yeah, that is
Right.
so true.
Right.
That's true.
And
Now, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Vanetta.
no, I was just going to quickly say that I do think when a person is well-rounded, when you have friends and you have a spouse, it helps both relationships.
Yeah. And that's like kind of what Preston was saying, that it actually was a benefit to him. His wife's friends, were a benefit to him as well. And like he used the word bridge. And it is. It's it's somebody you can be a sounding board for, a person that you can have fun with and invite them into your home. But I just think that there is so much to be said about having a good friend or having good friendships that can benefit a marriage or withstand the test of time. And so again, now Preston, and you said that you had friends from the military, and now that your wife is gone, do you still maintain those friendships that you had, that she had with her friends?
Well, the connections that she had were hers, and there's a unique dynamic with my wife and her sister that I've lost both of them. So they both passed on. The women outside of Debbie that she knew, I didn't really get into those relationships. I still say hi and bye when I was back in the States. If they saw me in church or something like that, we would have conversations. But my life, after the loss changed drastically. So her connections were her connections. And I'm still friends per se with those people, but she had a separate bond with them. Her very best friend, her sister, and I were super close up until she left as well. So different aspect there. I'm actually friends with my first wife. I've been married more than once. And my first wife and I, in part because of our daughter, but in part honestly, because of her, that we established a friendship that continues until now. I mean, such that my wife and I, Joyce and I, celebrated a wedding anniversary in California because my daughter was graduating from medical training school. And literally our anniversary meal was at a table with everybody. So we didn't do anything that was just us.
Yeah.
And it was 100% cool with it because our connection as friends says, okay, this is something that we're doing for one of our kids, and as a result, we're going to spend our day with everybody. And then that's one of the beauties of a friendship, because I got to see an aspect or learn of an aspect of my wife from her best friend that I was able to not take advantage of, but to better understand her. And it made it a lot easier at times to go to her with stuff and with issues, because I now had an access to her from a different perspective, seeing how she interacted with her sister. Everybody is still a mystery. We don't realize that you say I do to someone and you love them until death do you part. But they are like puzzles with pieces that are just blacked out. And you're not going to get access to them unless they gain access, or you pay attention to them, or you find a way in. And for me, finding a way in was making sure that I shored up her relationship with her sister. When she saw that I was not, being competitive, because at one point in time, I would, the phone would ring, it'd be a sister. And this was, again, in the first year, max 2 years. I go, it's your sister. With a smile, like, yeah, okay, we need to go somewhere. And she on the phone with her sister. I'm like, do you mind? So I was, a little rough around the edges. Well, time and maturity changes everything. So now it's, can you call Debbie on the phone, in the car, in the cell phone, while we go to where it is we need to go? And she would laugh at that. Yes, sis, let me call you back. And then get on the phone and be talking about absolutely nothing. Absolutely not.
And that's Vanetta's husband and my husband always say they on the phone and they still talking and they're not talking about nothing.
Yeah.
No, we watch TV shows together. Now that drives them crazy.
Yeah. My wife would come from church, and I didn't know this for 6 months. My wife would come from church, call her sister, and she would re-preach the sermon. Yeah.
No, we will do that. Vanetta and I could go to an event and then we'll talk on the phone like a debriefing of the entire event, like about what somebody had on, what somebody else said, what we thought about the food, all that kind. So it's almost like we had to break down
what they gonna do next.
Right. And our spouses would be like,
That's
did you want to
absolutely
see
true.
each other at the event? And we'd be like, yeah. But now we
Yeah.
have to talk about
Yeah.
the event
What's one
together.
got to do with the other?
Right.
Yeah, and as a man, I learned to stay out of that room.
But that's good because you sound like you were mature. And like you said, you grew in that maturity to understand the importance of your spouse maintaining a friendship, and that it wasn't against you or anything like that. It's just that she had the need to still have that friendship, and you were mature enough to understand that you still could have the relationship that you had with her, and that she still needed to have her other relationships with her friends. And I think that's important too.
Well, I realize that marriage and friendship are two different things. There are people that I have had deep conversations with that were married for, as the old saying goes, because of the kids. They had a functional marriage that, served a purpose. They were polite and nice to each other, but their connection as friends was minimal. I learned from my relationship with my wife and the connection that she had with her sister that everybody has a best friend. How deep that friendship is one thing or two others. But if a husband and wife get into it, she get mad, whoever she runs to, that's the best friend. He gets mad, blows up, and needs to let the air out of the tires, and he goes somewhere. Whoever he goes to is the person that's his best friend. And when their spouses, or when the spouses make a connection with those individuals, their relationships change because they get that bridge. My wife would get upset at me about something. I know she's calling Debbie. I wouldn't fire off a message to Debbie to say, hey, this is what happened, because now I'm placing her in the middle, but I'd be waiting for a call from Debbie because I nurtured and developed my own personal relationship with her. She would call sometimes and say, where's my brother-in-law at? And my wife would get an attitude. She says, well, Debbie wants to talk to you. And I'm like, okay, so I'm not stealing her from you, and she would come to me with issues that she was facing at work or other things. And that created a bond for me that if my wife was upset about something, it's one ringy-dingy, two ringy-dingies, or a text or an email says, hey, you need to be aware of this. My wife was having an issue on her job, and she was sort of kind of telling me about it, but she really didn't just come out and say. And my sister-in-law knew my personality. So she contacted me and says, look, here's what's going on at the job. You can't blow up and go in that place and go Rambo on people, but here's what you need to know. So I use that to then go back to my wife and say, hey, tell me about what's really happening at work. Again, that bridge crossed in both directions. But if there's someone out there who is married and they're concerned about their spouses or their significant other's best friend, get to know that person, because that person is going to bring you closer to the person that you really love. You're not going to necessarily be their best friend, because I didn't want to know some of the stuff my wife was talking to her sister about. We had a conversation about that. I don't want to know about what happened in your conversation you had with one of your clients. No, I'm not that dude. Debbie would listen to that stuff all day long. So lie the difference, and we worked around that. But when you know the other person's closest person, the people that they confide into when they don't confide in you, you get another side of your spouse or your significant other.
Oh, thank you. Oh, you know what? That is a wonderful thing, a wonderful way for us to end this with, because I think that is so wise what you said. You embrace these friendships, and they can only be a plus and helpful to the marriage itself. And I think that's a very good thing to know and to say, that you respect and
I agree with you.
that need.
And I'll tell you now, Pam, and I know this happens in your house as well as in mine. My husband will tell me something. He'll say, "You better not tell Pam." I say, "Okay, I'm not gonna tell her." Then the next day he'll come back and say, "I know you told her. What did she say?" I said, "Well, you told me not to tell her. I know you told her." And so that those kind of things I'm saying, I think he needs her support, but he doesn't necessarily know how to go to Pam and say, for this particular question, what do you think I should do? But he wants her input. So he funnels it through me.
Yeah. And I think that's a beauty to it all. I think that a strong marriage supports strong friendships as well. And I think when you don't have a strong marriage, I think that's when sometimes a person can feel a little bit intimidated by the friendship. But if you are mature and understand the need for everyone to maintain those type of friendships, then I think it can only help the marriage. But thank you, Preston, so much for your input. I really like the things that you said, and I absolutely agree with you about the fact that the friendships can be strong, but marriages can be strong too, as long as they understand that friendship is a part of marriage, and outside friendship, as well as developing a friendship between the spouses. So thank you so very, very much. Well, I really enjoyed that conversation, Vanetta. I absolutely find it interesting to examine friendships, because I just think friendships are just so important. And it's important to have outlets. And like my husband, Todd, every Wednesday he gets together with his fraternity brothers, and they go out for dinner. And then I go out to happy hour with a wife of one of his fraternity brothers. And we just always say that it's nice to have these outlets. We of course love our spouses, but it's just important to have friendships.
I'm always suspect of people who say my husband is my best friend or my wife. Well, that you need some more friends. Okay. Yeah. Because everybody gets mad with their spouse from time to time, and you got nobody after that.
You have nobody else to vent to or to talk to. Like I consider Taj to be my good friend. I call my best friend too. But I am so glad that I have you and other people that I can go to and say, he gets on my doggone nerve. You know, and then you even give me some feedback, or you say, girl, Rick get on my nerves too, or you know, whatever. So it's just nice to have. It really is.
It is. I really think the two of them support one another, as I say it. And I'll tell you what, I was impressed with this gentleman because he can still, even after his wife is gone, he still holds that friendship very sacred in his heart.
Yeah.
And I love that about him. And I always love people who can get up and just say, you know what? I'm going to leave the country. I'm going to just venture out into a whole new world. So he's a man who is very cosmopolitan anyway.
Yes. And like he said, he has grown to that. And that's what you want to have. You want to have a spouse that understands the importance of friendships and doesn't feel intimidated by that. So I like that.
You don't have to be challenged by it. What I have with you is so different than, and I, you know, and at times they may conflict. Like my husband and I are going on a cruise with my sorority sisters. He said, you better not leave me on this cruise. You better be with me all the time. I said, you're not going to be with us all the time.
No, that is not going to happen.
You better not leave me. But he's being funny, but in another part of him, he means that he knows that my focus will be them.
Right. Well, I enjoyed this conversation. If you enjoy our discussions, continue to follow us on Facebook. and on YouTube and Instagram. And until next time, we'll see you for another episode of Public Opinion. Bye bye.